no one is prepared. Which, are we really surprised? I don't think so. Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome and welcome back to my channel. Today with a very spoiler-filled review of Falling in a Sea of Stars, Book 8 in the Green Rider series. 4 years. It has been 4 years since the last book in the series released, and we finally are able to see what happens next. Are we any closer to any conclusion? This is a completely spoiler-filled review for Book 8, Falling in a Sea of Stars, so obviously there's also going to be spoilers for the entire series. If you have not read Book 8 yet, if you have not read the series yet, don't watch this video, because I will talk about details. We need to talk about the things that happened in Book 8. If you have not read the Green Rider series at all, I highly recommend that you watch my review for the Green Rider series, a spoiler-free review. I will put the link down below. But enough prelude. So again, this is your last warning. If you have not read Book 8, please do not watch this video quite yet. Watch my video where I summarize everything that happened from Book 1 till 7, so you're prepared in reading Book 8, then read Book 8, and then come back watch this video. Book 8. So much stuff happened. It is crazy. Stevik rescued Captain Mapstone from the Verosians, from the nation that kidnapped her in Book 7. He rescued her and all the other women that were held captive at that court. They escaped, and then they ran into pirates, and we learned a lot more about Stevik and his pirate past, which is very interesting. Mornhaven is finally back. We get a glimpse into Blackwell and what is happening now that the future finally arrived, and we are not prepared. We still don't have that secret weapon. The wall is still not repaired. We know a little bit more about what the wall wants, and it's dark in certain areas. But yeah, we still don't know how to actually defeat Mornhaven, but he's here now, and let's hope we figure it out in Book 9, but we did not in Book 8. Salvestar is dead now, of a very cheeky son, no less, although he is having some troubles in this book, which opens up a lot of questions for the future of the gods themselves, and with that of Kerrigan, who, as we all know, is the avatar of Vestrian. So there's definitely some interesting stuff happened in this book, but a lot more questions opened up, at least for me, in this book as well. And with that, also in regards to Kerrigan and her part of being an avatar, with her falling through the cosmos, essentially, being in... We still don't really know what world it is. It's not that in-between world. It's not the white world. It is something else. And the book didn't really answer any of that. We just learned a little bit more about it and how deep it actually goes, how big it actually is. So I'm very curious, especially for this part of the story, to see where we are going with this. We are meeting old enemies again. The Grey One, Shawdle, is a big part of Book 8. And also different, I guess. And then, of course, we are following Kerrigan and Zachary, since they now received the okay from Queen Astora to follow their heart. But as we all know, in good Kristen Britain style, that following your heart is not how this works in this story. Since we're already in Book 8 in a series, this review is basically more me talking about what I liked and what I didn't like about the story. And then obviously I want to hear from you in the comments what you thought about the book. Where are you at? Where's your head at with it? So let's start about the what did I like about this book part. First of all, it feels like coming home. Sakuredia really is a second home for me now. Very likely similar to you. I've been reading the series for a long time already. I've reread the books quite a bit throughout the years. And this is just home to me. I love Saku City. I love Sakuredia. I love the Green Riders. I love to visit the stables and the castle and everything. And we just get to see so much of the day-to-day life of everyone. We get to smell the stables. We got to follow Kerrigan's footsteps. Just this world itself and how Kristen Britain describes it is a big part why I love this series. And she's not disappointing with Book 8. The other part is the future has finally arrived. We are finally at that point where Mornhaven is back. We're at the point where Kerrigan delivered Mornhaven. No one is prepared. Which, are we really surprised? I don't think so. Of course, there has to be a big evil that no one is prepared for and no one knows how to deal with. Still, even though we are trying to figure it out for many, many books and many, many pages now. But I'm excited to be at that point and to finally get started on figuring out Monhaven. Nothing is being figured out in book 8, but I'm hoping that this is the beginning of the end. And I'm very curious to see where she is taking that, if his past will be a big influence, if we will get to see any more of that. In general, there are so many fantastic storylines that are either being finished in this book or that are being continued in this book. For example, like this deep dive with Vestran and Salvastar and her falling through the Sea of Stars. How we got to meet Shottle the Grey One again. That whole storyline was super fascinating to me because it gave us, again, no answers, but it gave us a lot more detail as to who Kerrigan is in her Avatar story arc and how the gods fit into the bigger picture. Because I'm a big Madeline Gods fan, that is something I'm really excited about to see how this continues going forward. I'm super glad Captain Mapstone is safe and sound and she has been rescued by Stevic and Mallory, even though I thought that plot point was a little bit out of left field in book 7 and was resolved way too fast in book 8. In general, I'm glad she is safe, and I'm also kind of glad she lost her abilities. I know this sounds weird, but I think she and Stevic have a fantastic life ahead of them, and I hope this is the beginning for their life together. I don't think it's going to be a quiet life, knowing what adventure junkies those two are, but I'm hoping that Captain Mapstone can finally relax a little bit more and enjoy the second half of her life. Talking about gods, the other part that I really loved was the teenage horse that we got to follow, Salvastar's son. And I loved following him along with his little adventures and the little jokes that he is playing on the folks in Sarko City. It helped loosen up the story a little bit and add some light moments to that. And I really appreciate it for what it was, because let's face it, that book was dark and there's a lot of stuff that happened. But our little teenage horse helped with some more fun moments. Similar to Stevic and Mapstone, I hope Alton and Astral are through the worst, although they're going through a lot in this book as well. But now with Astral having her voice back and them being closer than ever in Falling in a Sea of Stars, I also hope that those two will get some rest and can enjoy their life together. Again, I'm saying this fully knowing what happened in the past for those two and knowing who was writing the book, so they're probably not going to have a quiet life, but at least they're together now and it feels like their relationship is at a very solid state right now, so that was very satisfying to see. Talking about Astral's voice being back, I loved the part of the story about Lala and her learning from the Barry sisters about manners. Because her backstory is very tragic, and I really hope that at one point we will get a novella from her viewpoint to get to know her better, because she had a shitty childhood. I mean, let's face it, Grandma was not great to her, even though she loved Grandma. But the fact that she couldn't tell good from evil and how screwed up her worldview was very interesting to see in this book. And I love to see that, we get more page time with the Barry sisters. That is always fantastic. But also how the Barry sisters helped her and then how she in return helped them. So just for that part, Falling in a Sea of Stars was completely worth it. And there's obviously a lot more in this book. We get to see Enver again. That part about him being wary towards Kerrigan and Kerrigan trying to resolve her issues with him was very interesting. I thought it was very interesting to learn more about Kerrigan's family from her father's side, even though it was kind of a weird storyline, but whatever. It was interesting to see more about that and to get a little bit more detail into Stevic's life and why he decided to leave that island when he was a kid. And talking about that, in particular, I loved the fallout of Stevic's adventures. He started this business by himself and he made it into what we got to see over all of these books, right? A very successful merchant business. And it was very interesting to see this rather responsible man run off for love and then also see the fallout from that decision, because now the business fell onto Kerrigan's shoulders, right? She had to all of a sudden take care of it and figure out how that works. Besides the fact that I appreciated that we saw her being bad at something again and not being perfect at everything, I just love that glimpse into the business. So I'm a business major, so I always like to understand how a business runs and what someone does to get a profit and whatnot, which in this case didn't really happen. That was a very fascinating aspect of the story for me, that we got such a deep dive into the machinations of the Galadian Empire. Summarizing all of these little plot points that I enjoyed in the book leads me into what I actually didn't like, and that is just the sheer number of stuff that is happening. That was an issue I had with Winterlight already. Other books, like book 1 to 6, while there's a lot of stuff happening, it felt paced a little bit better. Winterlight and Falling in a Sea of Stars are just so fast paced that it is really hard to keep up with all of these plot points. In fact, like, I read the book 3 months ago and I'm just now getting to filming the review. I had to really look into what happened again. I barely remembered all of the plot points, and I'm probably still missing some of them. And then especially with Falling in a Sea of Stars, knowing how much happened in Winterlight, we didn't even continue with a lot of the storylines that we started in Winterlight. What happened with the Leaning Clans and Astora? What happened with the Moon Priest? I don't remember seeing any of that in Falling in a Sea of Stars. It feels like the story should now that we have all of these threats there with the dragons and Mornhaven and all that, like the Elysians being kind of funky, you know, all of those things going on, it feels like we are now at a point where the big ending should happen, yet there's still more new storylines that are being added to the story, and you're like, this is too much. The other thing that bugged me, even though I understand why that decision was made, is that this book felt very much like a setup book. Kristen Britain talked on her socials that she actually wrote book 8 as a much longer book, and then the decision was made that it is too long and it should be split in two. There's zero information, as far as I can tell, about we're finishing everything out now and this is the final book, or if there will be another book afterwards. But what we know is that book 8 is essentially just the first half of book 8. There's a second half that we still have yet to figure out and get to see, which I'm hoping is not going to be 4 years again, since it is written and done. So I hope we get it to see much, much sooner. But because of that, book 8 felt very much like a first half of a book, like a big setup to something bigger. And then lastly, and this might be a controversial one, the Kerrigan and Zachary relationship. I'm Team Kerrigan and Zachary. I have been since it started. I really want them to be together. They deserve it. I think they're right for each other. I am not sure that I like this kind of approved sneaking around, and it feels again like a setup to something is going to happen with one of them, because, you know, there's the sentiment of the court is not allowed to know, and they make themselves vulnerable because of that relationship and that affair essentially. And yeah, I don't know. I find it weird. I know we had a lot closer relationship already in book 6 and 7. And in book 7, we had a lot of conversation about she shouldn't be the mistress of the king because that puts her in a very vulnerable situation. And even though they have the approval of the queen now, they don't, quote unquote, have the approval of the court. Not that they need the approval, but, you know, it's frowned upon. People would use them because of that. Yeah, it feels like a weird setup to something very bad, and I'm not sure I want to see that for them. All right, to sum it all up, a lot of good stuff happened. I am very happy with a lot of plot points moving forward, some of them being resolved. I am very excited to see where we are going with Mornhaven now and with the gods as well. So those two storylines I'm very, very excited about. I'm excited to see that the big ending seems to be starting now, and that we are going into the direction of seeing what that big ending is going to be and how everything will turn out for our Green Riders. So how about you? What was your favorite part in the book? Let me know down in the comments. And then also, do not forget to subscribe, because I have something fun Green Rider themed coming up relatively soon that I'm very excited about and that I hope you will enjoy. So thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye!